Charlie Brandt lived a seemingly normal life, but beneath the surface lurked a deadly secret. From a shocking family murder in 1971 to his gruesome killing spree in Florida, his crimes went undetected for decades. Can we even know how many victims he left behind?
What you are about to hear is believed to be real, based on witness accounts, testimonies, and public record. This is terrifying and true.
When it comes to true crime stories, there are so many about the moment of snapping, the moment where somebody decides to do something dark and heinous that one would never imagine. Tragically, it's often to those closest to them. Then, of course, some killers are compulsive for their entire lives. So, what happens when someone commits a sudden act of violence and gruesome murder, only for it to turn out that perhaps they were living a double life? Well, tonight's story is all about that, and so much more. So, make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting app, and we'll get to the story right after this. On January 3rd, 1971, in the quiet town of Fort Wayne, Indiana, 13-year-old Charlie Brandt shattered the facade of normalcy in his home. That night, he walked into the bathroom where his pregnant mother was bathing and his father was shaving, and opened fire with his father's handgun. His father survived, but his mother and her unborn child were killed instantly. When the gun jammed as he turned it on his sister, Angela, she managed to calm him down and flee for help. This horrific act would mark the beginning of a dark legacy that spanned over 3 decades. Though Brandt spent only a year in a psychiatric hospital before rejoining his family, the chilling events of that night were never spoken of again. Years later, he would move to Florida, marry, and build a seemingly normal life. But beneath the surface, a sinister compulsion lay dormant. In September of 2004, a devastating revelation emerged. Brandt brutally murdered his wife, Terry, and their niece, Michelle Jones, before taking his own life. The discovery of the crime scene and the meticulous violence inflicted shocked even seasoned investigators. Further digging into Brandt's life revealed a chilling possibility. He may have been linked to several unsolved murders across Florida, with a pattern of mutilation that hinted at a deeply disturbed killer hiding in plain sight. Charlie Brandt's story leaves a haunting question. How did a seemingly ordinary man commit such unfathomable acts? And how many lives might he have claimed in his dark and secretive life? Charlie Brandt was born on February 23, 1957, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the second child of German immigrants Herbert and Ilse Brandt. The couple originally settled in Texas before relocating to Connecticut in search of better opportunities. Herbert, who started as a laborer at a division of International Harvester, worked diligently and eventually advanced to the role of draftsman and project engineer. His career required frequent relocations, which shaped much of the Brandt family's life and influenced Charlie's upbringing. Due to the family's frequent moves, Charlie and his older sister Angela attended several different schools, making it challenging for them to form lasting connections. Although Charlie was considered a good student, his shy demeanor and struggle to adapt to new environments often left him feeling out of place. Despite this, he maintained steady academic performance and remained close to his family. These relocations, while disruptive, were part of the sacrifices made for Herbert's career advancements. In September 1968, Herbert's job brought the family to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where he was transferred to another international harvester plant. By this time, the Brandt family had settled into a pattern of adjusting to new homes and new schools, an experience that required resilience from Charlie and Angela. The stability of their father's career seemed to provide a sense of structure amid their transient lifestyle, although the frequent changes took their toll on Charlie's social development. Despite his struggles with adapting to new surroundings, Charlie shared a close bond with his father, particularly during family vacations to Florida. These trips offered a sense of continuity and enjoyment, with Charlie and Herbert spending quality time together, mostly hunting small game. These outdoor activities not only strengthened their relationship, but also served as a consistent thread in Charlie's otherwise unsettled life. Charlie Brandt's seemingly normal early life was shattered on the night of January 3rd, 1971, in what became a horrifying and tragic turning point. At just 13 years old, Charlie entered the bathroom of the family's Fort Wayne home while his father Herbert was shaving and his mother Ilse, who was 8 months pregnant, was taking a bath. Without any apparent warning, Charlie shot both of his parents at point-blank range using his father's handgun, which he had retrieved from a dresser. The attack killed Ilse and the unborn child instantly, but Herbert survived his injuries. Charlie's violence didn't stop there. He proceeded to his sister Angela's room and attempted to shoot her, but the gun misfired, sparing her life. Angela, just 15 years old at the time, demonstrated extraordinary composure in a situation of unimaginable terror. As Charlie turned his attention toward her, she managed to physically struggle with him, ultimately calming him down by promising to help him figure out a way forward. Leveraging his trust, Angela convinced Charlie to leave the room and retrieve blankets for their 2 infant sisters, who were unharmed and still sleeping in the house. The moment Charlie left, Angela seized the chance to escape. She fled to a neighbor's house, alerting them to the horrifying events unfolding in her home, ensuring help was on the way. When police arrived, Charlie appeared to be in a dazed, trance-like state. During questioning, he claimed to have no memory of the killings, stating that he snapped and felt emotions he had never experienced before. He also cited stress from school as a contributing factor, though this alone could not account for the enormity of his actions. Charlie alluded to a distressing incident just days earlier during a family vacation in Florida, when his father, while hunting, shot and killed their dog in his presence. Though this event of killing the family pet was significant to Charlie, it provided no definitive explanation for the violent act he committed. Psychiatric evaluations followed the shooting, but failed to uncover the underlying cause of Charlie's behavior. Despite the gravity of the crime, Indiana law at the time prevented him from being tried for murder due to his young age. Instead, Charlie was committed to a psychiatric hospital where he stayed for 1 year before being released in June of 1972. Remarkably, he was returned to the custody of his family, who chose to suppress the incident and move forward as though it had never happened. This silence became a cornerstone of the family dynamic, as the events of that night were never spoken of again. For decades, the tragedy was buried, and Charlie's 2 younger sisters were led to believe that their mother had died in a car accident. This carefully constructed facade shielded them from the truth, but left a deep undercurrent of unresolved trauma within the family. The lack of open acknowledgement or reflection on the incident would later prove to be a critical factor in understanding Charlie's troubled psyche. What seemed like a contained and forgotten episode from his youth would resurface years later in ways no one could have anticipated, marking the beginning of a chilling pattern of violence. After his release from the psychiatric hospital, Charlie Brandt's family sought a fresh start, relocating to Ormond Beach, Florida. The arrangement, however, was short-lived. Within a year, Charlie's father, Herbert, remarried and moved back to Indiana with his 2 younger daughters, leaving Charlie and his older sister, Angela, in the care of their grandparents. Despite the upheaval, Charlie appeared to rebuild his life. In 1984, he earned a degree in electronics and began working as a radar specialist for Ford Aerospace in Astor, Florida, establishing what seemed to be a promising career. In 1986, Charlie married Teresa Terry Helfrich in an intimate ceremony that excluded family members. Angela and her husband had urged Charlie to share his dark past with Terry, but it remains unclear whether he ever did. The couple eventually settled into a serene beach house on Big Pine Key in 1989. From the outside, their life seemed idyllic, with no signs of the storm brewing beneath the surface. The illusions of normalcy persisted until September of 2004. When Hurricane Ivan forced the Brandts to leave their home and take shelter with their niece, Michelle Lynn Jones, in Orlando. On September 2nd, 2004, the Brandts arrived at Michelle's home, where they were warmly welcomed. Initially, everything seemed fine, and Michelle kept her family and friends updated about her visitors. However, on the evening of September 13th, tensions flared after Charlie and Terry had a heated argument fueled by alcohol. Michelle called off plans with a friend, explaining that the couple was fighting. Concern grew when no one heard from her in the days that followed. On September 15th, Michelle's friend, Debbie Knight, arrived at the house to check on her. Unable to enter through the locked front door, Knight went through the garage, where she found Charlie's body hanging from the rafters. He had hanged himself using bed sheets. Inside the home, police discovered a gruesome scene. Terry had been stabbed multiple times, while Michelle's body had been decapitated and disemboweled. Her organs had been removed, and her head was placed beside her mutilated body. Knives from Michelle's kitchen were identified as the murder weapons. Investigators searching Charlie's Big Pine Key home uncovered deeply unsettling evidence. His personal belongings included surgery-themed books, posters, and autopsy photos, along with frequent online searches for snuff films and websites featuring violent content against women. This discovery led law enforcement to suspect that Michelle's murder was not an isolated act. Their suspicions deepened when links emerged connecting Charlie to the unsolved 1989 murder of Sherry Paricio, a woman who lived near his home. Sherry Paricio's murder had remained a mystery for years. Her body was discovered floating near the North Pine Channel Bridge, close to Charlie's residence. Her throat had been slashed, and her body was mutilated in ways eerily similar to Michelle's. Witnesses had reported seeing a man resembling Charlie near the scene that evening. Additionally, Terry had previously confided to her brother-in-law that she suspected Charlie's involvement, noting that he had returned home that night with blood on his shirt, which he claimed came from cleaning fish. With this damning evidence, investigators officially closed Sherry's case in 2006, identifying Charlie Brandt as her killer. Further investigation into Charlie Brandt's case revealed potential links to multiple unsolved murders in Florida, some dating back to 1973. These connections gained attention during the inquiry into the 1989 murder of Sherry Paricio. While authorities were unable to conclusively tie Brandt to these crimes due to insufficient evidence, several cases bore chilling similarities to his known modus operandi. One such case was the 1978 disappearance of 12-year-old Carol Sullivan in Volusia County. Abducted from a school bus stop, her skull was later discovered in a bucket. Although Brandt lived nearby at the time, no direct evidence connected him to her murder. Another case of interest was the brutal killing of Lisa Saunders in Big Pine Key in December of 1988. Saunders had been beaten, stabbed, and dragged from her car before her body was found. Disturbingly, her heart was missing when her remains were discovered, though investigators could not determine whether it was removed by her killer or scavenged by animals. This case occurred less than a year before the murder of Sherry Paricio, and the violent nature of the crime aligned with Brandt's known pattern. A third case that raised suspicions involved Darlene Toller, whose decapitated and heartless body was found wrapped in plastic along a highway. Investigators noted that Brandt's meticulous mileage records matched the distance between Big Pine Key and the location where Toller's remains were discovered. Although this evidence was circumstantial, the parallels to his other crimes were compelling enough to warrant scrutiny. These cases, while unresolved, painted a grim picture of Brandt's possible involvement in a broader pattern of violence across Florida. Charlie Brandt was ultimately classified as an American serial killer, with confirmed murders of at least 4 women, 1 in Indiana and 3 in Florida. His killing spree, which spanned over 3 decades, began on January 3, 1971, and ended with the double homicide of his wife and niece on September 13, 2004. Brandt's ability to evade suspicion for so long has been attributed to his calculated behavior, lack of direct evidence, and the shocking trust he maintained among those closest to him. Despite the investigations, many questions remain unanswered about the true extent of Brandt's crimes. Authorities continue to examine cold cases with similarities to his known methods, hoping to bring closure to the families of his potential victims. In the end, Charlie Brandt's life left behind a legacy of unimaginable darkness. Though his crimes came to light after his death, the full extent of his actions and the lives he may have taken remains shrouded in uncertainty. The horrors of his deeds have left an indelible mark not only on the families of his victims, but also on investigators who uncovered the gruesome details of his crimes. His ability to maintain outward appearance of normalcy while harboring such sinister tendencies continues to baffle those who studied his case. Even now, the questions linger. How many lives did he claim during his decades of secrecy? And what allowed such darkness to go unnoticed for so long? Charlie Brandt's story forces us to confront a chilling reality that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones hiding in plain sight. Terrifying and True is narrated by Henrique Couto. It's executive produced by Rob Fields, Mark Shields, and Bobbletopia.com. It's produced by Dan Wilder with original music by Ray Mattis. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, send us an email at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. And if you want to support us directly for as little as $1 a month, simply go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. Your support helps us keep the podcast going and growing. And speaking of, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their name at the end of the show. And they are Jessica Fuller, Johnny Nix, Jenny Green, Amber Hansford, Brent McCullough, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you right here next time on Terrifying and True on Weekly Spooky.